practiced this nearly 1,000,000 times, and I'm going to go off script right away. Standing in the back, and I caught myself getting a little emotional, a little teary-eyed. And I realized that 5 years ago, I got to be the superintendent at Northern Cass. And that has allowed me to live out my purpose and mission in life. I have such a gifted group of educators that are here today, parents and learners, that I get to stand before you today, and I'm so profoundly privileged to be here. So they said, my name is Cory Steiner. I am the superintendent at Northern Cass. I'm a native North Dakotan, and I'm really proud of that. I grew up in a small town in southwest North Dakota called Scranton. Yeah, there's only a handful of us who know where that's at. And in Scranton, I grew up with 3 siblings, and I grew up with my mom and dad who lived on a family farm that we farmed for over 50 years. Now, when you live on a family farm in North Dakota, you are a farmer, whether you like it or not, and I did not like that. And my siblings would tell you, so if they're watching and they see this, they will tell you, I was bar none the worst kid on the farm when it came to helping out. To prove that, my dad one time said, son, it's time you learn to drive a swather. I don't know why it's ever time to learn to drive a swather. So he got me behind the wheel of the swather, and I went around one time, and he stopped me and he said, you're done on the swather. $5,000 later and 2 days off of swathing, my farming days came to an end. But I do have some really fond memories of living on the farm. Sundays were a cool day. We'd go to church. If you're in a small town church, you have a coffee and roll when you're done. You talk about the week that was and the week that's coming ahead. And then we'd go back out and we'd get the combine ready. That was our combine, dead serious. That was our combine, an old Gleaner, not quite what we see out there today. And so we'd go around and we'd tighten belts and we'd oil this and put some grease on that. And then it was my job, okay, the one job I was really good at on the farm was to find imperfections, to find areas of schisms. And what my dad and what we really meant were giant areas that were broken apart off of there because it was such a piece of crap. And so we used the greatest invention, I think, during my generation, duct tape. And I would go around and I would duct tape all the pieces of wire so we didn't lose as much grain as we normally would. Now, that technology, that combine at one point was one of the most innovative things in our world. Over the course of time, it became fine with a little duct tape. And then eventually it became obsolete. And that's what I'm going to talk to you a little bit about today, is the idea of fine. Let's frame it first, though, for that thing that is probably the most important technology in our lives today, and that's our phones. That's what I grew up with. Let me go back to it. There. That's what I grew up with when I was young. And some of you are like, what is that? That's a rotary, okay? And that's a cord. And so I know it's hard to realize, and it's probably tough to believe, like this rugged, beautiful, handsome man you see before you wasn't so great in high school with the ladies. And so I made a decision one day, and I remember this really fondly. I made a decision. I said, I'm gonna go call a girl. And so I did, and I called like 7 or 8 before one finally didn't hang up. And so then for 30 minutes, we had this conversation. That means 25 minutes of dead silence and 5 minutes of me going, But I think back, and I'm sitting in there in the other room because I pulled the cord into the other room, and my mom says, Cory, get off the phone. Somebody important might be calling. The phone's going to be busy. And I lost my mom a couple of years ago, and I don't know why this is the thing I remembered for this talk. But the part that was unique about that is we don't know what busy means when it comes to phones anymore. We don't know what cords are. Heck, most of you get 6 or 8 foot cords so you can still be on your phone while it's charging. See, this was cutting edge technology. It transitioned to fine, and now it's obsolete. But the part of it I think that's most important, the part we need to understand, is the F word. And that word is fine. Fine is an extremely dangerous word in this world. And it's dangerous because it never allows us to go from good to great. It mires us in mediocrity, and it allows average to be acceptable. Now, you know it's coming because I'm an educator. I believe right now our education system is nothing more than fine. And that has got to change our world. When you look at this, when you look on that screen, I bet I could ask every one of you, have any of you had an experience like that in your schools? And if you've got a bunch of gray hair, no hair, or you're just in your primary years, you're going to say, I had that experience. And that experience was built for 150 years ago in an industrial age. We live in a society right now where information is growing exponentially. I had a chance to listen to a futurist the other day, and it was fascinating. He said, exponential and linear. He goes, yeah, I needed to explain. He goes, well, if I took 30 linear steps on this stage, I'd cover about 90 feet. If I took 30 exponential steps, I would cover about 26 times around the world. Our education system is training kids to go 90 feet when it should be training them to rule and go around this world. Now, a lot of people say it's change. Change is hard, and I don't like that cliche. The right change is hard, but the right change is still the right change. I still think it's a mindset about fine. And I bet, again, if I went around you and I asked you, tell me about your high school experience, your elementary experience, you'd give the same answer that my daughters Del Rey and Kelsey give to me. How was your day-to-day, girls? Fine. How was your high school experience? Fine. Everybody says the same thing. We have a nation of people who are okay with fine about the most important thing. Everybody on this stage today is here because of our educational system. Fine can't be good enough. We have accepted fine too long in our schools, and that has got to change. Now, let me be really clear on this. This is not a teacher problem. We have the most gifted educators in this part of the country like you wouldn't believe. They are selfless, they are compassionate, they are empathetic. You know what they do? They love your kids even on the days you don't love your kids. Now here's what I believe. I wonder what would happen when we take the most gifted educators in the country and we put a system that's not awful in front of them. They already do amazing things in a system that doesn't work. What would happen if we put them in front of a system that does? And that's what we need to get to. Because here's the problem with our system. Our system doesn't respect that every kid is different. You got brothers, sisters, friends, they're all different. But that system says we're all the same. We're going to come the same way, we're going to go through at the same age, and we're going to get out at the same age. We're going to learn everything at the same time. When everything about our life says that's not how this world operates. That's an unacceptable system. It is a system that says at the end of January and at the end of May, you're done learning, we're going to attach a grade to that. That's a system that doesn't work. It's a system that still says if you don't go to a four-year college, for some reason you were a failure. And that's not the world we're living in, and especially in Cass County. That is not the world we're living in and what we need. So you'll hear me. So you'll hear me also talk about a couple other things that I think are wrong with the system. We have a system right now that values GPA, grades, and test scores, when we should be valuing compassion, empathy, and building amazing human beings. We have a system that says the kid who can work on a car engine is somehow less than the kid who can get an A on the AP exam. And that's not right. We have a system that says the kid who wants to go into a FACS course and has a passion for cooking can't go into that course because he's got to be in a course over here that we've said 100 years ago that's the course he needs to be in. See, we have blamed kids today for the society you and I have created, and it is time to knock it off. I will tell you what's in our schools. Okay, I will tell you what's in our schools, and it is absolute and utter brilliance. You want to know what's in our schools? What's in our schools? The next Steve Jobs. What's in our schools? The next President of the United States. What's in our schools? It's the next person who's going to stand up to racism and say, no more, we're done with that. So how do you do that? That's the question everybody asks. Like, great, sounds good, we'll clap, we'll cheer. How do you do it? Well, what if a school would get bold and say, we're going to get rid of grade levels. And we're going to let kids come in, and we're going to put them right where they're at, and we're going to say, you can go as fast as you want, you can go as slow as you want. You go slow, you're not a failure. You go fast, you don't get bored. That'd be a unique idea. What if we got rid of grades? Because I can tell you this, no matter what you think, an A, B, C, D, or F does not mean anything in terms of how successful you're going to be when you're 35, 40, or 50 years. It won't tell you how good of a parent you will, how good of a husband or spouse. It will not. What if we got rid of that and we actually gave kids something that said, here's where you're at, here's where you're going, and here's where you came from, and we knew exactly what they learned. And we celebrated learning as a continuous process instead of an endpoint. What if we said learning doesn't have to take place in our schools, and you as business owners and community owners opened your doors and you allowed our brilliant kids to come in, and you allowed our brilliant kids to solve your problems? Because they can, and they will, and they are, but we got to give them a better system. Now you might say, yeah, that's all great, how are you going to do it? And I'll say, we got a school 25 miles north of here that's well on the way to doing this, to making this a reality. Because in our school, but also in our education system, we said no more of the F word. Fine doesn't cut it. We're not going to use that F word again. The word we're going to use going and moving ahead is forward. Thank you.